Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to, where are we? Exploring the Lord of the Rings. That's where we are. I have this problem a lot. You know, as I get older and older, I'm going to have a harder and harder time remembering which broadcast I'm doing on any given day. By the time we get to the Return of the King, I'll be like, what book were we talking about again? Anyway. Hey everybody, this is session number 187, in fact, of Exploring the Lord of the Rings. And this I am increasingly confident that we are going to hit my goal of being done with the Council of Elrond by Mythmoot, because we have exactly 4 slides left in the entire chapter. We have 4 weeks to go, so we're good. We're good, and it is almost lunchtime. Drow Snake, indeed. This has been the longest wait for lunch that most anybody has had ever. Quick announcement before I begin. I just want to let you guys know about. Just to remind you, because I think I told you guys last week about what's coming up. Tomorrow night, we're beginning a new book in our discussions in the Mythgard Academy. So we've been doing Dante's Inferno for several months now, but we are going to begin a discussion of The Moon is a Harsh Mistress by Robert Heinlein. Golden Age science fiction stuff. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to talking about The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. And so that starts tomorrow night. That's Wednesdays at 10 p.m. And you are welcome to join us on Twitch, or you can go, if you go to our webpage, which was just posted there, you can get the link for the GoToWebinar session that we also use for the classroom interface there. So encourage folks to join me. And just another reminder, because I think I mentioned this last week, that after we do The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, we're going to be doing that until early September. And then in early September, The Nature of Middle-earth is released. And I'm really excited for The Nature of Middle-earth. I'm very curious about The Nature of Middle-earth because it's going to be... as I've been told, the first Tolkien book we've gotten in a while that actually contains new material. So, yeah. Oh, and JJ, of course I listened to the audiobook. Yeah, but it's not, I think, just supposed to be a Russian accent. And I say that, JJ, because the narrator's actually quite good at doing other accents, right? So I bet you that he could put together a Russian accent if he just wanted to do a Russian accent. I think that what he was going for is really the loony accent. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. Plenty of discussion of the linguistics of the moon tomorrow night. But anyway, yeah. So we're gonna be talking about The Nature of Middle-earth starting in September. So I hope you'll join me for that. I'm really looking forward to that. We're all gonna be reading this book for the first time together and kind of discussing our way through it. So I hope you will join me. For that. And no, Evil Dr. Ken and I do not have an update on the lodging yet. We're kind of in the position we always are of sort of being patient and waiting for that information to, like, for the green light, for that from the venue. But I believe we will have that soon. Yeah, any day now, exactly. So we'll see. And so Westcott, you're right. There are definitely actual boulders involved in The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. Yeah, no question about that. No question about that. Anyway, cool. So my other announcement, the Evil Dr. Canon, which you anticipated, was just to remind folks about Mythmoot. Really excited to see folks again. It's been really exciting. I just had my first karate class in about 16 months in which I actually got to hit somebody apart from my own child. So that was my 13-year-old son is a second-degree black belt. So he and I have been able to hit each other, but I haven't been able to hit anybody else for a long time. So that was really wonderful. Anyway, so yes, so excited to be. There are several things in my life that I've been waiting for. That was one. The other was. Is Mythmoot and being able to get back together. Mythmoot and the regional moots that are going to follow, because we are definitely going to be starting up our regional moot program again this coming fall. We're already making plans for New England moot in September, and plans are also underway for Middle Moot back in Iowa again in October. So. And yeah, Balancement SoCal, absolutely. Yeah, we're definitely going to be kind of coming back around and talking to folks, and would love to get back to SoCal again this year. SoCal, Bay Moot, Sunshine Moot. Oh man, the tragedy of Sunshine Moot 2020. That was the moot that was scheduled like 3 weeks after the pandemic hit, basically. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, exactly. And as Dorward says, if you can't come to Mythmoot in person this year, it's okay. Moot Hub is going to be a really good option. We're putting a lot of work into making the online experience, the hybrid experience, the online part of the hybrid experience, as fully immersive as possible, so that you can really be involved, all day through. So, anyway. Yeah, Druid's Fire, that is totally true, actually. I think when I saw you at PAX East, that was just about the last, gathering I went to for a long, long time after that. Yeah. Don't worry, JJ. I only engage in fully consensual violence with people. I'm not going to attack anybody. Yeah. Oh, it was so sad, Kitriana, the canceling of Sunshine Moot last year. So I'm really looking forward to get back to all of our regional moots and to expand. We're already working on some new ones. I think we have a Buckeye moot in progress. We're working on an Ohio moot, which we've never had before. Anyway, that's there's a bunch. I still am hoping we can get one in the Pacific Northwest, which we've never had. I really am looking forward to the day when the borders come down and we're able to go ahead and do Maple Moot up in Canada, as we have been hoping and planning to do. Anyway, so, and of course, needless to say, hoping to move forward with the plans we had been making for Dragon Moot over in Wales, which was meant to have happened back in September of 2020. And Mile High Moot, Emily, that's another thing that's been under discussion before, but has never happened. So, yeah, lots of possibilities. Yeah, and Dime, my kids would still really love to do the Helcaraxa moot, or the remoot, as we sometimes call it. That is the Alaska moot. for Dime, it'll be you, me, and the polar bears. I don't know. Anyway, we are working on it. So really excited to get things up and running again this year. Now, let's jump back into the text. 4 slides left in the Council of Elrond. So you'll remember, of course, last time Bilbo had been making his statement, and we were thinking about the different kind of levels of significance of that. Thinking about what Bilbo was thinking about how what he's directing towards Frodo, what he's sort of saying for himself, and what he was directing towards Elrond also in those statements. So today we get to the response. "Of course, my dear Bilbo," said Gandalf, "if you had really started this affair, you might be expected to finish it. But you know well enough now that starting is too great a claim for any, and that only a small part is played in great deeds by any hero. You need not bow, though the word was meant, and we do not doubt that under jest you are making a valiant offer, but one beyond your strength, Bilbo. You cannot take this thing back. It has passed on. If you need my advice any longer, I should say that your part is ended, unless as a recorder. Finish your book, and leave the ending unaltered. There is still hope for it. But get ready to write a sequel when they come back. Bilbo laughed. I have never known you give me pleasant advice before, he said, and as all your unpleasant advice has been good, I wonder if this advice is not bad. Still, I suppose I have not the strength or luck left to deal with the ring. It has grown, and I have not. But tell me, what do you mean by they? The messengers who are sent with the ring. Exactly. And who are they to be? That seems to me what this council has to decide, and all that it has to decide. Elves may thrive on speech alone, and dwarves endure great weariness, but I am only an old hobbit, and I miss my meal at noon. Can't we think of some names now, or put it off till after dinner? Okay. So much I want to talk about here. So much I'm looking forward to talking about here. First, let's focus on Gandalf's reply. Let's do this in order. I was tempted to jump in at Bilbo's response. Some things there that I really want to jump into. Yeah, Centaurlonio, I was thinking the same thing. I was just about to talk about the choice of the word messengers by Gandalf there. But no. Let's start at the beginning. How Gandalf approaches Bilbo, right? We've already had, this comes right after the response, right, by the room, right? We've had Boromir's response, right, as he's laughing at what Bilbo obviously intended on some level as a joke, and yet he sees everyone else being gravely respectful, and he sees, and Glóin, of course, is smiling. I agree with what many expressed last week. Certainly in affection, a smile at old memories, in which I do not doubt comments about grocers were crossing through his mind. Yes. Yeah. Now, Beorning in Exile, I agree that only a small part is played in great deeds by any hero is a really poignant follow-up to Elrond's small hands comment. Yes, it is. Only a small part is played in great deeds by any hero. That is, it does correspond really interestingly. And it's interesting in that he's not quite reversing it, but the impact seems to be the opposite, right? Such is often the way of things, right? Elrond says, right? Small hands do these great deeds because they must. And then Gandalf turns around and says, only a small part is played in great deeds by any hero, right? And I don't think there's any contradiction here. Both are quite right. Yes, the deeds that move the wheels of the world are often done by small hands, right? That is true. But it is also true that only a small part is played in great deeds by any hero. He is not... Gandalf, that is to say, is not diminishing the people. Like he's like, hey, don't like the people with small hands get, all puffed up about this, right? That's not his point. His point is he's recontextualizing the great deeds, right? What he's responding to specifically is Bilbo's claim to have started this affair, right? Bilbo, the silly hobbit, has started this affair, and Bilbo had better finish it or himself, right? That's the statement that Gandalf is responding to. And as he has just said, if you had really started this affair, you might be expected to finish it. And it's in regard to that he adds, you know well enough now that starting is too great a claim for any. So he's saying both a specifically relevant thing and then making a general observation, right? The specific claim is, Bilbo, you've been listening, right, for the last few hours. You know that you only came in at the tail end of the ring story, right? I mean, the story of the ring and how the ring how it is that we have come to be holding among us here this object which gives us the unique opportunity to bring Sauron low, right? I mean, like, we have the means functionally to destroy Sauron here among us, but that was something that began way back in Eregion, at least, right? Even that, one could argue, is not really the starting point per se, but anyway, yeah, I do think that that's pretty clear, right? The first thing that he's saying is, this is a long story, right? The 77 years since you first encountered the ring is a tiny little chapter in the story of the Ring of Power as a whole, right? So on the one hand, he says that pretty clearly. On the other hand, he says only a small part is played in great deeds by any hero. And that, I think, it's not only more general, right? He's not just saying it's not just about this story. This is true of all stories, right? Even the greatest heroes, whom we might think of as being, like, it's the whole, I mean, like, think about the Silmarillion stories, for instance, that we tend to identify with the name of a character, right? Like the story of Turin Turambar, or the story of Eärendil, right? Or something like that, right? Any of those characters, any of those stories, in those stories as well, it is also true that only a small part is played in great deeds by any hero. I think that Gandalf's claim is twofold here. On the one hand, coming as it does after his statement about this affair, right, echoing Bilbo's phrase, this whole Ring of Power affair, he's speaking chronologically, right? So on the one hand, it's about the chronological extent of things, that any time a hero plays a part in a story, even if it's a pivotal point, even if it's a crucial point, it is only a small part of that story, right? I mean, like, to take either of the examples I just gave from the Silmarillion, yeah, Turin Turambar is the hero, for better or for worse, of the story, that the longest story that we get in the Silmarillion, but that story itself is only picking up on stories that had been going on for some time, right? The animosity between, that story has its roots in the story of Húrin and Morgoth, right? Which itself has its roots in earlier stories, right? I mean, it's part of a larger narrative, okay? So yes, only a small part is played in great deeds by any hero, but I think that there's also, and yes, Frumius Bujum, you were right to be remembering Gandalf's "You're only a little fellow in a wide world after all" at the end of The Hobbit, right? He said a similar thing to Bilbo back then, right? And that's exactly what I was just coming to, is that I do think that he is also speaking in that moment in The Hobbit, right? Gandalf seems to be pointing in the very last paragraph to a theme which has been fairly clear, if one is paying attention all the way through The Hobbit. And that is that there's been this whole conspiracy, right? Bilbo's luck is not really his luck. He has been the agent of this story, but it's been this bigger story in which Bilbo has been swept up in. Only a small part was played in those great deeds by any hero. And The Hobbit is actually a really interesting illustration of this statement that Gandalf is making. We can think about this on several different levels, right? We can think about this in relation to Bilbo himself, as Gandalf points out, right? And even think of the ways in which Bilbo himself drops out of the story after he gives away the Arkenstone, right? He plays almost no role in the Battle of Five Armies. I mean, he spots the eagles, but they were coming anyway, right? So he didn't really change anything there. I mean, he doesn't really do anything after that, right? The big great events at the end. Did he play a role? Yeah, Yeah, but again, he only had one part to play. He didn't get rid of the dragon. He played one small role in the getting rid of the dragon, right? Anyway, so Bilbo himself illustrates it in The Hobbit, but then also you can look at almost anything, right? Look at Bard, right? Bard is a great hero in the Hobbit story. He's the dragon slayer. That's a really big deal. I mean, think of how many of Tolkien's other stories would have made, Bard the bowman, the dragon slayer of Esgaroth, the hero of that story, right? I mean, like, it kind of would have been a story about him, except it's not, right? Only a small part is played in that story by Bard. Anyway, I'm just saying, I think it's kind of interesting, thinking of Bilbo, I think it's kind of interesting how The Hobbit sort of shows this. But again, coming back to the kind of ontological statements, right? That Gandalf is pointing to obliquely, as he always does, at the end of The Hobbit. I think that's true here. We've seen several places where I think Gandalf especially is pointing to the act of providence, right? The story that is unfolding in the music of the Ainur, of which they are all a part, right? In which they are all of them only playing one small part in the big context of the entire orchestral work, right? That is the history of Middle-earth as it moves forward. So I do think that both of those things, both the chronological extent, as several of you have pointed out, Sam is also thinking about stories in this way on the Stairs of Cirith Ungol, right? About how the stories just go on and on. Beren and Luthien were only small characters, it turns out, in the story that they were a part of, because the tale is still going on, as Sam discovers, and he's now in it, right? That doesn't make Sam feel super important. It just makes him realize how big the stories are, and Gandalf is clearly pointing to that here too. So again, I don't think his point is not to diminish the great deeds or to diminish the heroes, right? But to sort of point to the very much larger context, larger chronologically, larger sort of in scope, right? And of which Bilbo's little snippet of the story of the One Ring is an illustration, right? So he kind of moves from that sort of teasing, not exactly teasing yet. He's still speaking very gently. I'm not saying he's not going to get around to teasing Bilbo, but I actually think that Gandalf is, to me, surprisingly gentle. In this whole paragraph, actually. I think that he's less teasing to Bilbo here than one might actually expect him to be, especially given that Bilbo himself initiated the jesting tone, right? The tone of hobbitry, making, darkly humorous remarks about, ending the ring or himself and all that kind of thing. But Gandalf doesn't take him up on that tone, right? From the very beginning. Of course, my dear Bilbo. He begins instead with gentleness and affection, my dear Bilbo. Of course, if you had really started this affair, you might be expected to finish it. And then he doesn't tease him. He doesn't belittle him, which he could do, right? I mean, that would be, I could imagine, absurd is a sort of a favorite word of Gandalf's, right? He often calls things absurd or people absurd. Don't be absurd, right? Is one of Gandalf's favorite phrases. He could have thrown out something like that, right? He could have, made some sort of, remark that was cutting in a friendly way, right? But he doesn't do that. Instead, he makes this broad statement that we've been talking about, right? Which ends with, while contextualizing the great deeds done by heroes as small parts in the larger story that's unfolding. But of course, embedded in that whole observation is a compliment, a significant compliment to Bilbo, right? Classifying him as a hero. And Bilbo gets it, right? Bilbo hears that compliment and bows to him, right? Now, one thing that I wonder is, what is the tone of Bilbo's bow? Like, is he, how much is he smiling when he bows, right? Does he take it as a joke in some way? Like, is he kind of taking it or almost passing it off as a joke? Is he overcome with serious, is he like seriously and genuinely honored and is sort of responding in that way? Matt, yes, I agree. Bakshi's version makes that mistake of having Gandalf be grumpy at Bilbo's offer. Yeah, absolutely, which I think is dead wrong. Dead wrong. Yeah. But even when Gandalf, how much, I bet you that Bilbo is not yet, I don't think that he's completely sobered. I don't think that he's like totally serious when he's bowing. I would bet you that his bow is intended as a little bit of like kind of passing it off as a joke, at least mildly, right? Kind of diffusing the moment, right? Rather than being like, oh, thank you, Gandalf. No, really, you shouldn't, right? That's not Bilbo, right? Instead, he kind of makes a joke out of it, like, oh, oh gosh, thank you, right? And bows. But Gandalf, again, if that's the tone in which Bilbo does it, the mood in which Bilbo does it, Gandalf again doesn't take him up on it, doesn't give it back to him, right? Does not descend from his serious, though gentle and affectionate tone. You need not bow. Though the word was meant, and we do not doubt that under jest you are making a valiant offer, but one beyond your strength, Bilbo. You cannot take this thing back. Okay, so now there are two things. Flammifer, I agree. Partly serious, partly hobbitry, I think is exactly it. He's not like actually, making fun of Gandalf for saying it, right? But not wholly serious, not wholly joking. I think exactly. There are two things though that really interested me about how Gandalf goes on to reply to his bow, right? Though the word was meant, and he uses this as a springboard to puncture Bilbo's joking. We do not doubt that under jest you are making a valiant offer. Like, Gandalf is kind of embarrassing Bilbo here, right? I don't mean in a mean-spirited kind of way, right? But there's a lot of honesty going on here, right? I mean, like the kind of honesty that embarrasses folk, especially if I may say English folk, right? Like hobbits. We do not doubt that under jest you are making a valiant offer. I acknowledge that although you were joking, you were legitimately willing to put yourself on the block, right? You were perfectly willing to sacrifice yourself here. But here's the other thing that I don't know what to do with. And you'll probably laugh at me when I say it, but is anybody else confused by Gandalf's sentence structure here? Did that jump out to anybody else? What do you notice about that? Though the word was meant, and we do not doubt that under jest you are making a valiant offer, but one beyond your strength, Bilbo. Those are both sentence fragments. Gandalf doesn't usually talk in sentence fragments, right? And this is one that whenever I come to this passage in the audiobook version, in the Rob English reading, It always trips me up. I always notice this sentence because it sounds like he just screwed it up. It sounds like he kind of, you do that thing where you start reading a sentence and you kind of get the clauses wrong and you kind of just don't enunciate the sentence right, and then it ends up kind of being chopped up or something. So that's what it sounds like, but it's not. That's what's there in the text. Gandalf stumbles around on two sentence fragments there. Though the word was meant, and we do not doubt that under a jest you are making a valiant offer, comma, what? I think the way to understand this, so you can tell, right, the way that sentence with the long compound subordinate clause, right? I think what Gandalf began to say was, though the word was meant, and we do not doubt that under jest you are making a valiant offer, you cannot take this thing back. That makes perfect sense, right? But then he interjects in the middle of that. But one beyond your strength, Bilbo. Though the word was meant, and we do not doubt that under jest you are making a valiant offer, but one beyond your strength, Bilbo, you cannot take this thing back. It sounds like he's interrupted himself there. Is he interrupting him? If he is interrupting himself, is he doing it in response to Bilbo? Like Bilbo's nonverbal cues here? Bilbo's just bowing, and then he points, sort of exposes the valor, right, of Bilbo's offer. Flamifer and Ian McClear on Twitch were both just suggesting, is emotion getting the better of Gandalf here? Maybe it is. But one beyond your strength, Bilbo. I don't know. I'm not sure I'm wholly convinced by that. Mostly because I think that I'm not saying he's not experiencing emotion here, but it doesn't seem to be that sort of emotion. Like the kind of emotion that makes you stumble over your words. I don't know. Again, gentle affection is how I would describe, how I've been describing sort of the mood of this whole paragraph. You cannot take this thing back. It has passed on. The simplicity of that latter sentence is just what I would have expected, right? To have this long, compound, complex setup, and then the simple conclusion. It has passed on. Belangsmon is wondering if Gandalf got caught off guard by what Bilbo said. Was it unexpected? Perhaps. Here's the thing. Let me come at this by asking a further question, which I haven't asked yet. Why? Why is Gandalf not giving it back to Bilbo? Why is Gandalf not teasing Bilbo? Why does he answer him because Gandalf's good at hobbitry. And are there any other times? Can you show me any other times in the Lord of the Rings when one of the hobbits is addressing Gandalf in a teasing tone and he doesn't give it back to him, right? Sometimes, look at Gandalf and Pippin, right? I mean, seriously. Don't be a fool. Exactly. That's more like what Gandalf is. Impatience or teasing in return, right? It's very, very unusual that he doesn't give it back, right? So why isn't he? Bilbo made this easy, right? Bilbo made this easy, but Gandalf isn't taking him up on it. Yes, I agree, Druid's Fire, that Bilbo does expect a hobbitry response. I agree. I agree. In Admiral Malcontent, I do believe that Gandalf is talking to more than just Bilbo here, for sure. But here's the thing that I'm thinking. Gandalf recognizes, although Bilbo is joking, this is not a joking matter, right? Because this is not just a question of a valiant offer, right? Bilbo has not just offered his own life for the free peoples of Middle-earth. He has done that, right? It is a valiant offer. He is a hero generally recognized by the room, as Boromir notices to his surprise, right? But of course, there's another way to look at that speech that Bilbo just made. One thing that he is concealing under jest is the valor of his quite serious offer. But there could potentially be another thing that Bilbo is concealing under jest, right? And that is his desire for the ring. Exactly, Lupilia. And Dux. Precisely. Another thing that Gandalf might be seeing happening here is that this is also a very plausible gambit. This could be like a very plausible excuse for the recovered alcoholic to go to the bar, right? And Gandalf is being, so he treats this very, very carefully. And where he starts stumbling, where he starts almost doubting himself, is when he's going to come to the point. And perhaps why he builds up to it as gently and carefully as he does, and in such a complimentary fashion, right? Because those two things, which he ends up saying as short, simple sentences, potentially are crushing to Bilbo. Depending on it, Gandalf can't be sure exactly where he is inside, right? Because remember, this is uncharted territory, right? Nobody knows. Nobody knows at all what a person who has given up the Ring of Power will respond when back in the presence of the Ring of Power, right? What's going to happen to Bilbo? Gandalf saw what happened to Bilbo, right? Gandalf was alarmed to see the kind of effect that the ring had had on Bilbo. We saw that back in chapter 1. And Gandalf had to exert his own power to resist the power of the ring and to assist Bilbo's will in asserting itself against the ring back in chapter 1 and to give it up, right? Is he going to have to do that again? Right? Is he going to have to, is this going to get ugly? It got ugly in Bag End. Is it going to get ugly here again? Right? It could. It doesn't, but it could. And that's my theory about why Gandalf is stumbling here. You cannot take this thing back. It has passed on. Is Bilbo going to start calling him a thief again? Is Bilbo going to start saying things like, if you want my ring for yourself, then just say so? That's what happened the last time they had this kind of confrontation, right? JJ, I agree. It's also complicated in the other way, right? JJ says if Bilbo isn't after the ring, or doesn't realize that he is, accusing him of such outright could make Bilbo resentful and cause him to dwell on things he wouldn't otherwise. Yeah, like, he's got to be really careful, Gandalf does here, right? You cannot take this thing back. Cannot. Not you should not, right? You cannot take this thing back. It's not, that's not on the table. Can't be on the table, Bilbo. It has passed on. The ring has passed on. It can't go back to you. And this is where I think Gandalf, comes into this is why I think Gandalf ends up stumbling over his syntax, right? He starts off, the big thing that he has to say, you cannot take the ring back. You cannot take this thing back, right? Notice he doesn't even name it. He doesn't even name it. In the entire paragraph, he doesn't name it. He never says the ring. If you had started this affair, echoing Bilbo's language, starting anything is too great a claim for any, right? You are making a valiant offer about something. You cannot take this thing back. It has passed on. Yeah, he never mentions it, right? So again, what he was building up to saying was, you cannot take this thing back. And he's already doing it carefully. Though the word was meant, and we do not doubt that under jest you are making a valiant offer, you cannot take this thing back. Qualification, kind and friendly, warm and fuzzy, drop it. You can't take it back, right? And he interrupts himself, right? It's like in the middle of his setup, he gets another idea, right? About another thing to emphasize, but one beyond your strength, Bilbo. It is beyond your strength. It has passed on. Yes, make way for Frodo, Lord of the Thing. Yeah, exactly. Good, yeah. Lupilia, you're right. Faramir also calls it this thing. And I suspect Lupilia for the same reason. He doesn't want to name it either. We know that Gondorians are careful about naming things, right? The Dark Land and he whom we do not name, right? So I believe that's the same reason that Faramir calls it this thing, right? Yeah. And good. Yeah, several of you are asking about the pleasant advice. We're going to get there in just a second. And this, I think, is awesome. This is like a low-key high point for Bilbo's character, in my opinion, what's about to come up. But we're not done with Gandalf yet. Because look at where he goes after he drops it. You cannot take this thing back. It has passed on. Again, first of all, notice how this parallels the statement that he made earlier on. You know well enough now that starting is too great a claim for any, and that only a small part is played in great deeds by any hero, right? You know you didn't start this story because you hear that it started thousands of years before you found the ring. And in general, any hero plays only one small part because all of these stories are part of the big story of Middle-earth, which is really not about any one of us, right? And notice how he does the same kind of pattern, right? You cannot take this thing back. You don't have the strength. It would be a totally bad idea. You cannot take this thing back. It has passed on. The story of the ring is still going on, but Bilbo's role in it has done. Only a small part is played in great deeds by any hero, right? So I love the kind of parallelism there. But then, where does he go? If you need my advice any longer, I should say that your part is ended, unless as a recorder. Finish your book and leave the ending unaltered. If you need my advice any longer, that too is, again, notice how by saying that he is softening. He has just said in a no doubt and a very authoritative manner, you cannot take this thing back. I know you are offering, and to that I say, no, Bilbo, no, it can't be. It won't happen. It has passed on. So on my authority, I am telling you these things, Bilbo. And then I'm going to say, if you need my advice any longer, right? I'm going to say that you are now like you're independent, right? Of my advice. You don't need to be advised by me. You've graduated, right, from my bossing around, despite the fact that I literally just bossed you around in the last sentence that I said, right? Yeah, so I think that's it's like he's bookending his hard words, like the words that might be most difficult for Bilbo to hear, right? Bookends it with the hero comment and the if you need my advice any longer, right? But even then what he goes on to say, I should say that your part is ended unless as a recorder. Finish your book and leave the ending unaltered. Finish your book, but get ready to write a sequel when they come back. Two main things I want to emphasize about the end of Gandalf's speech here. First, the emphasis of Bilbo's book. I can't think of anything more kindly than to take Bilbo's book this seriously, right? Do you see that he is escalating? How much he is escalating Bilbo's book here? Your private memoirs, Bilbo? Yeah. No, actually, you are a recorder of the story, which is so great that only a small part is played in great deeds by any hero. Yes, your book will take its place in, the lore of the great deeds of this time, right? That's really interesting, right? Really interesting, I think. And again, exceptionally gentle, affectionate, and kind by Bilbo. By Gandalf towards Bilbo. But not just kind, not just like, isn't he saying a nice thing, right? It's also legitimate, right? You do still have a role, right? He does still have a role. And I think, honestly, this is something that I think is, it's not just flattery. It's not just flattery of Bilbo, right? Bilbo does play a role in not only preserving, but making the lore of this age, right? We know that Bilbo is going to be instrumental in the, what Aragorn will go on to talk about keeping the memory of the elder days alive in the age to come, right? Yeah, Bilbo might feel like, rather a small fellow in a big library at Rivendell, right? What does he, this silly old hobbit, have to contribute to this wealth of lore, right? But he has a great deal to contribute. And it has already been making an impact, right? We saw that with Sam, right? And Sam's recitation of the Gilgalad verse, clearly translated by Bilbo, as we were looking at the time, clearly translated by Bilbo as a way to teach young juvenile hobbits the stories of ages past. Sam clearly being his star pupil in this regard, as far as having a love for the stories of the elder days stirred within them. I think it's exactly the translations from the Elvish by Bilbo Baggins, Bjorning in Exile. It's a huge deal, right? It's a huge deal. Yes, the importance of reinterpreting and transmitting, even, I would say, GDC, the old tales for a new audience, is a hugely important role. There's he does have a part to play as a recorder, and Gandalf's not merely flattering. It is flattering, it is very kindly in that way. And does immediately give Bilbo a positive thing to focus on, just in case he's getting that itch, right? He can turn his attention to something productive, right? And not simply feel, because again, remember Bilbo's old reactions from back in the first chapter, right? Calling Gandalf a thief, accusing him of just trying to get the ring, to maneuver to get the ring for himself, right? Those are the potential kinds of reactions that Bilbo could be having at this moment. So what is he doing? Giving him a positive thing to latch onto, right? But there's a second thing. It's not only the recording, it's not only the book writing. the other thing is Balancement, just as you said before. This is extremely hopeful, right? I mean, one would say almost inordinately hopeful. He's demonstrating here a kind of hope that seems actually counterindicated, right? By what they've just been talking about, right? I should say your part is ended unless as a recorder. Finish your book and leave the ending unaltered. That's the first point, right? Don't give up hope for your own life. You will live happily ever after. Well, that's hopeful. So I guess Sauron is not going to come in force to Rivendell and blast the place eventually, right? Even Bilbo's probably not going to get the chance to live happily ever after. In fact, you could even argue that if Sauron recovers the ring, Bilbo, as a former ring bearer, as someone else who, claimed the ring for his own for many years, Bilbo would be on the short list of people who would likely to be tormented deliberately or incidentally by Sauron in his possession of the ring. So even his statement that Bilbo should leave the ending unaltered, even the proposition that Bilbo Baggins is going to live happily ever after till the end of his days, is a pretty optimistic view of how this story is going to turn out, right? And then he explicitly says it. There is still hope for it. But get ready to write a sequel when they come back. Holy cow, when they come back? For real? Come back? Goodness, isn't that skipping a bit there, right? I mean, whoa, we're talking about the return journey already? Gandalf speaking confidently, telling Bilbo to prepare himself for the, successful outcome. Not only is the quest going to be successful and Sauron destroyed, but those who are sent with the ring will come back? Really? I mean, it kind of was seeming a little bit ago that the best we could hope for was, them going down with the ship, right? Yes, Captain Mo, exactly. Gandalf is giving Bilbo the hope that it's going to be a there and back again story. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, from the beginning of the suggestion of this, back in chapter 2 with Frodo, right? He was immediately foreboding that there was going to be no back again, right? But Gandalf is ready, right? Is ready for the successful outcome and tells Bilbo to get ready, to prepare himself to write a sequel. And that's kind of amazing. Yes, Bjorning in Exile is remembering the line about kindling hearts in a world grown cold. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's Gandalf's job, right? And we can see him doing it here. There is still hope for it. But get ready to write a sequel when they come back. Now we have this moment, which again I think is a low-key, really big moment. Bilbo laughs. Bilbo's response. How is Bilbo going to respond to this moment, right? I will do what I choose and go as I please, right? Is that what he's going to say in response to Gandalf's speech? He could, right? Gandalf has seen this before. How is it going to affect Bilbo? He laughs. I've never known you give me pleasant advice before. The way that Bilbo turns the whole thing into a joke again, right? That he maintains the same level of hobbitry and teases Gandalf. As all your unpleasant advice has been good, I wonder if this advice is not bad. Still, I don't suppose I have the strength or luck left to deal with the ring. We'll come back to his serious statements at the end, which I find absolutely fascinating. His characterization of Gandalf's advice to stay in Rivendell and finish his book and write the happily ever after ending, his characterization of that as pleasant advice is so telling, right? Some were suggesting that it is possible. Some of you were suggesting that it is possible that Bilbo's characterization of this as pleasant advice suggests that he was not, in fact, at all feeling any ring longing. I think that that's possible, but I doubt it. I don't think that's what it shows. I think it shows that he has overcome it. I'm not saying that I think that he was in the grip of the ring when he was speaking before. I don't think that he was being, compelled by his overmastering desire for the ring to make. I don't think that. I don't think that it was all, under jest. It was all a ploy, right? He was trying to throw them off the scent and conceal his true desire. Again, no, I don't think any of those things. Those are way too extreme, right? But was there, in the quiet of his mind, a little rationalization going on, right? Was there a part of his mind, this sort of familiar voice in the quiet corner of his mind offering this rationalization, right? Even like they're probably going to ask Frodo to do it, so I could step forward and do this, and by that rationalization sign myself up to get my ring back, right? Again, it has all of the feelings, the feeling of that, right? It has all the sense of that, like that's just, it's just lurking, right? Again, like a recovered alcoholic might really genuinely bring themselves to believe that under these circumstances and for this very good reason, going into this bar won't be a big deal, right? But there's always going to be a level on which there is deep down some rationalization going on, right? That's how when one does fall back into old patterns that one has, into old addictions that one has kicked, or old, patterns of choice that one has walked away from. That's how they always return, right? Usually, or at least it's a very common way, right? So was there a level on which that was happening? I think definitely yes. But Bilbo wins. Bilbo wins. His laughter shows that he wins. He accepts it. Unquestioningly accepts it. I've never known you give me pleasant advice before. Is there even a level on which, again, under jest, he is reassuring Gandalf? Is there a sense in which that sentence translates to, don't worry, Gandalf, I'm not going to call you a thief again and accuse you of trying to rob me, right? I think so. I think that's one of the reasons why he's teasing him, why he teases him here about the unpleasant advice, right? And wondering if this advice is not bad. What is he doing? He's pointing out the reversal in Gandalf and, in Gandalf's advice. And in pointing that out, he is demonstrating the reversal in himself, right? Yeah, don't worry. I'm really sober, and I'm going to stay sober, right? I'm not going there. And I agree, Bjorning in Exile, the thought of Bilbo reassuring Gandalf with the authority of age and the equality of a friend is lovely. I completely agree with that. So, yeah, good. I agree. He's implying that telling him to give up the ring in the first place was unpleasant advice that was good advice. Yes, is the his general reference to the unpleasant advice that Gandalf has given, right? Give it away and then you can be free, right? That was unpleasant advice. Gandalf was giving Bilbo a bunch of unpleasant advice on that night, right? And do I think that by teasing him about this, Bilbo is acknowledging that history and reassuring Gandalf that it's not going to happen, right? Yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah, I think it's I think this is a wonderful, wonderful passage. But now we get Bilbo stops joking. Still, I don't suppose I have the strength or luck left to deal with the ring. It has grown and I have not. And that's really fascinating, isn't it? His reference to luck obviously should make us think directly of The Hobbit, right? Remembering The Hobbit and Bilbo's role in The Hobbit, his reference to his luck, right? And how his luck is not run out, in the way one says, like a gambler's luck runs out, right? When he rolls snake eyes or something. But he doesn't have the strength or luck left. Notice also he's agreeing with Gandalf. One beyond your strength, Bilbo, right? He's agreeing with Gandalf's statement there. Though notice he kind of qualifies it a little bit. I don't suppose I have the strength left, right? It's almost like, hey, I'm not saying it was, I'm not sure it was always beyond my strength, right? I totally could have handled it. 60 years ago, I totally could have handled this, right? But you're right. Nowadays, maybe not so much. Back when I was the protagonist, Gandalf, I could have managed this, right? But not before, right? Not before. Anyway, I think that this is, that's really interesting, but more. It has grown and I have not. Now, I do suspect that that's literally true. Lupilia, as you say, the power of the ring has grown with Sauron's rise back to power, and it will grow more and more when, as geographically as they get closer to Mordor, right? With the, the power of the ring increasing, as like an inverse distance squared relation or something like that. That's definitely going to happen. But I think all that stuff is true, and Bilbo might be talking about that, but I don't think that he is. I don't think that's what I think that's true, but I don't think it's what Bilbo means. I don't think it's what he's talking about here. It has grown, and I have not. Blad the Inspirer, I do think that he means the ring has moved on. I think that's also him agreeing with Gandalf, right? He just acknowledged that Gandalf is right to say it's beyond his strength. And now he's saying Gandalf is right to say that the ring has passed on. But he's saying that in a very different way. But I think they both are perceiving the same thing, though they're talking about it differently, right? What both of them are saying, again, think back to where Gandalf began with stories and the roles played in stories by heroes, right? He had his small part in the big story, and it's mostly done now, right? He still has a part to play, as Gandalf says, but that part is done. And Gandalf, that's what Gandalf seems to be emphasizing when he says it has passed on, right? There are other people now who are playing their own small part in the next stage of the story. The story of the ring is not your story, Bilbo. You are not going to be expected to finish it, therefore, right? And Bilbo seems to acknowledge the same thing, but he doesn't only acknowledge that the story has gone on and his role in it is done. He characterizes it in a different way. it has grown and I have not. It's not just that the story continues, it's that the story has changed, right? This is not the same story. This is not the same ring. The story has grown, I think. Has the ring grown? Yes. But I think in the way that he refers to this, yes, the ring has grown because he now understands its story, but his relationship with the ring was totally different. And he knows that, and he sees that now. Does Bilbo feel a little bit sheepish in some ways about the way in which he used the ring? His useful invisibility ring. Is Bilbo now gonna kind of laugh at himself with some sheepishness to think that, the artifact on which hangs the fate of the entire, third age of Middle-earth and the lives of all of the free people of Middle-earth, that he used to use that to avoid Lobelia Sackville Baggins, right? It's crazy. And yes, I was thinking exactly the same thing that you guys are thinking. Of course, Tolkien, this is literally true for Tolkien, right? Bilbo is acknowledging, just as you said earlier on, who was saying, Johannes, it is almost fourth wall breaking as well, right? Because of course, this is literally true. The ring has grown and Bilbo hasn't grown. Bilbo is not set to be the great hero of this new story. The ring has grown. The concept of it has changed. The story has grown. I mean, goodness, this story is growing all the time. It was meant to be just a sequel to The Hobbit, and it's already way out of whack. It's already way longer than The Hobbit was, and he's barely halfway done. I mean, fortunately, he has now reached the halfway point because he's gotten to Rivendell, right? And of course, I'm joking, but that's what Tolkien thought when he got to the Council of Elrond. He thought he was halfway done at this time. So yes, the story is going to keep on growing. So yes. Yes. Anyway, so I do think that Bilbo's perception of the shift in the story is very, very interesting, right? And he is almost, it's like, it's a very meta moment in this story right here, because I mean, I don't think that Tolkien is literally breaking the fourth wall here, but what he's doing is Tolkien is doing is projecting the same realization that he had, like the same process onto Bilbo, essentially, right? Bilbo's perception of the story is paralleling Tolkien's perception of the story, right? It has grown. It has grown. He's not this kind of hero. He can't cope with the ring. He doesn't have the strength or luck left. Doesn't have the luck left. It's not that kind of story anyway, right? The story's grown. Back in The Hobbit, having luck well beyond the measure, of others, as Thorin said, was, very useful. And he used to take, think about him talking about trusting his luck, all those luck references in The Hobbit. But the story has grown. This is not just a luck situation, right? Now, Matt, I agree with you. There's an irony here, right? In saying it has grown and I have not, Bilbo proves that he has grown, right? I mean, it's like the irony of humility. No, it's not like the irony of humility. It is the irony of humility, right? A person who genuinely does not think much of themselves, who simply thinks first and foremost about other people and is not at all concerned about their own status, their own reputations, right? How people look at them. A humble person like that is very likely to be a very great person and able to accomplish great things, right? Because they don't think of themselves. And that's exactly what we see with Bilbo here. His perception that the ring, and also the story has grown and he has not, shows his greatness, right? But he's not wrong, right? He's not wrong. But it is, Matt, I do think that there's a really, really important irony there. This is the kind of growth that he has, in fact, had. He is much more humble now than he was back in chapter 1, than he was back in The Hobbit, right? He has grown importantly, very importantly. So Captain Mo, yes, I think that Bilbo really has grown. But where he's grown, the number one thing that is in his giving up the ring. I was suggesting this before when we were talking about the Hall of Fire, right? That moment when Bilbo says, "Put it away, I understand now," shows growth. I think that is in itself a moment of really important growth. And we were talking last week or the week before, I think it was last week in Bilbo's speech, about how we can see the effects of that. I think we can see what he has learned from that moment the night before in the Hall of Fire, right? That was a growing moment. And this, I think, is another one. It's one that both he is growing in this moment, and that we are seeing the growth in this moment. Anyway, okay. It has grown and I have not. But tell me, what do you mean by they? He comes back to pick up on the last thing that Gandalf said. And notice what he's also doing here, all of a sudden. He's playing Eristor, all of a sudden. He's now setting Gandalf up. But tell me, what do you mean by they? It has grown and I have not. Having just made that humble statement, let's stop talking about me. All right, we've been talking about me for a while now. And now that I have put to rest, Gandalf, your concerns about how, whether this is going to get tricky and I'm going to try to claim the ring again, right? I'm now going to help you move this thing forward, right? I'm going to pick up on that hint that you just dropped when they come back, right? And push this on to its next topic. What do you mean by they? The messengers who are sent with the ring. So now let's talk about messengers. Messengers. That is a fascinating noun. The messengers who are sent with the ring. Elrond characterized it as a quest, right? What's the message? And to whom? Yeah, Earendel was a messenger. Yeah. But not in Bilbo's poem. In the old version, there was a merry messenger, but not here, right? I'm pretty sure. Was he called a messenger at the end? Does it come back around to calling a messenger? I don't think so. The Flammifer. Sorry, I'm just running through the lines of the poem in my head. I don't think he does. I don't think he does use the word messenger of Earendel in the poem, in the text. Messengers. I really don't know what to do with it. Right, that's a good question. GDC is saying, could it be messenger in the sense of courier? Like being sent on an errand, bearing a thing, right? I'm going to give this thing to your custody and have you deliver it, right? Deliver it to Mount Doom. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Ashnask says the essay on the Astarian Unfinished Tales refers to the wizards as messengers. Could this be a similar usage? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think, and I see several people, Nathan and Flamifer, saying that messengers is what angels were in the Bible, and I think that Ashnazg, I think that that's what, when it's there in the essay on the Astari, that Tolkien is using the word messenger in that more angelic sense, that more biblical sense. I don't see that here. I don't see that here. I mean, yes, one could say, Flamifer, that they're like vaguely divine agents, but Tolkien was pretty specific. Remember, this is why he objected to calling... Lots of people wanted him just to say that the Valar were angels. If Tolkien had just said, the Valar are angels, people, they're angels, right? Everyone, almost everyone, would have been like, oh, okay, yeah, I get that, fine, right? But he doesn't ever just say that, because angel means a particular thing, and the Valar are not technically that, right? They're spiritual beings of a similar order to angels, but greater and have a different role. And they occupy a different part of the angelic hierarchy than angels do. And so, and Tolkien was too much of a stickler just to wave his hands and say, angels, basically, right? So he was always very precise about how he used that term. So I don't think, is there a parallel in some sense? Yeah, but I don't think the parallel is close enough. I think that Tolkien would have balked at that. Yeah, exactly. They were Oyersu Bricktails, exactly. They were much more like the Oyarsa of Melicandra and of Perelandra in C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy. There we see Lewis and Tolkien working within similar concepts, basically, of spiritual beings of great authority who are given responsibility for the formation and development of a planet. Yes. But anyway. So this is why I don't think the parallel between those who are sent with the ring and biblical angels is anything like close enough. The parallel between biblical angels and the Astari, yes, that's close. Not identical. There are important differences, but that's much closer. Close enough to make me think that that's exactly what Tolkien was thinking about when he referred to them as messengers. Anyway, okay. So, messengers. The messengers who are sent with the ring. First of all, forgetting messengers for a second, isn't the latter part of that sentence interesting? Sent with the ring. Notice what he doesn't say. The people we're going to give the ring to, right? There's no question of possession here, right? The ring is going to Mordor. We're going to give it an escort squad, right? There will be some people who are going to be sent along with the ring. They're the rings. It's like they belong to the ring more than the ring belongs to them. I'm not saying he says they really belong to the ring. He wouldn't want to say that either. But you see what I love the way that he dodges the way that he dodges the whole possessiveness question. Yes, Bricktails. The answer is yes. Didn't the medievals have carefully divide the angels into categories? Yes, 9 different categories. Does one of these more closely match the Valar? Yes, it does. But Tolkien knew that wouldn't have been very helpful. For him to be like, they're more like thrones or maybe dominations, right? Kind of in that area rather than angels. That would not have helped any of the people writing him letters asking about this. Anyway, so okay. So those who are sent with the ring. Right. JJ, I'm inclined to think along similar lines that messengers would be, logically, if they're messengers, they must have a message. And if they have a message, that message must be intended for someone. And so who's the message for? Is the message for Sauron? Is it for the rest of the free peoples fighting him? I don't know. First of all, JJ, I'm not 100% sure that that line of reasoning holds. I'm tempted. I go in the same direction. Like, that's my first impulse too. But I'm not sure, but I'm kind of resisting it. I'm kind of resisting it mostly because none of those things feel apt. I don't think it's a message for Sauron. They're not doing business with Sauron. They're not being sent to Sauron. He's not the goal. In fact, it's not hard to maintain that the goal is to avoid Sauron more or less completely, right? But nor can I really think that they're messengers to the rest of the free people, as again, secrecy is going to be the first rule of the Fellowship of the Ring, right? They're not sending a message to everybody. It's only when it's too late to do any harm that Gandalf tells anybody, right? It's only under very careful circumstances that Gandalf reveals anything about what the plan is to anybody, right? And it's only a few people that he does that with. Now, Nathan, that's a really interesting point. I'm thinking more like a herald, like maybe Bilbo is thinking that the taking of the ring is like a besieging of Mordor in war. The message is that they're starting war. Messenger like herald. Maybe. No, they haven't discussed secrecy yet, Nathan. I mean, apart from their general discussion of what will Sauron suspect and all that kind of thing. Yeah, I think, Kurtzimus, the more I think about it, the more it seems to me to fit more in the line of, well, back to the original suggestion of like courier, basically, like delivery people, right? They're also, maybe he doesn't mean it in a literal or quite a figurative sense, but almost like a metaphorical sense. We are sending them out like messengers, right? They are going from us. They're going out from us and they're going to a remote destination, and there they will make a delivery, right? Messengers do that. In that sense, in a more metaphorical sense, the message is a message of hope, right? It's a message of hope in the sense that if the package is delivered, hope will be born, right? Well, I guess hope was already born a little while back, and he's sitting on, the other side of the room right now. But hope will be exactly the hope of deliverance. And is there going to be deliverance from bondage, right? Is this going to be, well, yes, it is the Lay of Lathian, isn't it, Kurtzimus? As Sam is going to see, they're in the same tale still. And that tale has always been the Lay of Lathian, right? The lay of deliverance from bondage. Yes. Yeah. I do think that, yes, good. Kimber's saying a British meaning of messenger is errand runner. Yes, that element, I think, is what we're, the direction that I'm thinking. They have an errand, right? They're going to go deliver a package. And if they deliver the package, there will be, then there will be a message of hope, right, to the people. Yeah. Bilbo then takes him up, right? The messengers who are sent with the ring. Exactly. And who are they to be? That seems to me what this council has to decide, and all that it has to decide. Elves may thrive on speech alone. Back to hobbitry, right? And who are they to be? Now, so Bilbo is like Aristor, but a slightly less patient Aristor, right? Aristor is will diffuse the situation and lay things out clearly so that the conversation can go on to the next thing, right? Bilbo does the same thing, right? Almost exactly the same thing, diffusing what could have been a touchy situation with himself, right? And then pushing things forward, right? But he does so in his own tone, right? In his own idiom, right? That seems to me what this council has to decide, and all that it has to decide, right? And in doing so, like Aristor was boiling things down before, right? We thus return to there are but two courses, right? Those are the ways that Aristor says it. Bilbo is doing almost exactly the same thing, right? Look, Elrond has already said what has to happen. He's already said the ring has to be sent to the fire. Therefore, what's left to decide? There's only one thing left to decide. Who's going to take the ring? Who's going to be the ring bearer who's going to take it to Mount Doom? There's nothing else that needs to happen here, right? It's time for lunch. Elves may thrive on speech alone, and dwarves endure great weariness, but I am only an old hobbit, and I miss my meal at noon. Concealing the urgency of this, right? And notice how also he's also quietly giving an excuse for an adjournment, right? I'm not saying that it's very likely that Elrond is going to be like, oh, you're right, Bilbo, it's lunchtime. Let's put this on ice and come back to this in 2 hours or something, right? I don't think so, right? I think that, can't we think of some names now? I love the tone there. It reminds me of, I see elf lords here. Can't we think of some names now? How hard is that, right? Can't we come up with a list of names or put it off till after dinner? There's a teasing, and there I think, by the way, he's teasing Elrond, right? Can't we think of some names now or put it off till after dinner, right? Are you gonna get on with this? Are you gonna name somebody or should we postpone? His teasing of the elves and dwarves, and by the way, I agree. Somebody was talking about, Nathan the Wrong. It is almost a slant rhyme. The first half of that sentence is formulaic and sounds almost like a poem, right? Elves may thrive on speech alone, and dwarves endure great weariness, but I am only an old hobbit, and I miss my meals at noon. The first half of that sentence, doesn't it sound like the beginning of like a rhyme of lore or something? Or like it's parodying a rhyme of lore? Elves may thrive on speech alone, and dwarves endure great weariness. It almost scans, doesn't it? He is speaking very poetically, and that makes the anticlimax more comical, right? Elves may thrive on speech alone, and dwarves endure great weariness, but I'm only an old hobbit, and I miss my meal at noon. Very, very prosy at the end, right? And I love that. And notice again, it's he's teasing Elrond, but he's inviting laughter at himself once more, like he did before, and Boromir was the only one who was about to take him up on it. Yeah. Yeah. So he is both, I think, kind of challenging Elrond. Matt, as you said, he's calling the question, right? He's setting up Elrond, but a little bit more, much more teasingly and a little more aggressively than Aristor did before. But I think he's also, challenging everybody else in the room, right? No more. This is plain as a pikestaff, as Sam might say, right? We all know Elrond is right. There's no reason to go on talking about other rings of power and blah, 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 whatever. It's clear. It's clear what has to happen. We're going to send the ring. We've just got to figure out who to send it. So let's get to it. Let's stop delaying. Can't we think of some names now? I love that. What I love about it is that he makes it sound so silly, right? Like, can't think of anybody, right? Can't think of any names. Nobody crosses your mind at all, right? Yeah. Anybody besides me gonna volunteer, says Nancy. Yes. And Matt is just pointing out there's an added weight to Bilbo's challenge because he just volunteered. Yeah, can't we think of some names now? That also is a challenge to everybody else, right? So, I volunteered and meant it, but I concede, not a good idea for several reasons. So, what do you think, folks? Anybody else? I'll put it off till after dinner. Admiral Malcontent, you're right. He's kind of calling out all the wise, right? I mean, think about it, right? I mean, he just like Glorfindel is included in the crew of people. I mean, he's just took Glorfindel, been like, so, come on, what's it going to be, man? Right? And that's, okay. But Vlad the Inspirer, that's what I was just going to come back to. What is Bilbo thinking about Frodo? Is Bilbo thinking about Frodo? We were suggesting before that he was thinking of him in the previous, while he was volunteering. That part of his motivation is to attempt to deflect this task from Frodo, or at the least to make it explicit what this means, right? We were talking about that in the context of him changing the ending of his book, right? Away from He Lived Happily Ever After. And I don't know. I don't think Bilbo is simply desperate to prevent Frodo getting called on. I think that Bilbo also sees. Kit, I agree that Bilbo is a parent figure to Frodo. He's always thinking of Frodo. I agree. I think that Bilbo knows that this is Frodo's task. I think, again, to quote Sam out of context, I think it's as plain as a pikestaff to Bilbo. And that's one of the reasons why I think that his volunteering was not necessarily a desperate attempt to keep Frodo out of it. Again, I'm not saying I don't think that that's a small part of what was going on, but I don't think it was the majority part. I think it's more to warn him. I think, exactly, Valori, that he knows this is Frodo's task and wants to give him a chance to volunteer himself rather than be drafted, quite possibly. Or even, let's just make this, can we just make this explicit, right? Can't we think of some names now? In other words, I bet you're thinking of a name, aren't you? Why don't we say that name out loud and, cut the suspense here, right? Stop the drama and then go have lunch. Yeah. Um, in our next session, we will get Frodo's decision, right? What is the effect? What are the effect of Bilbo's words on Frodo? What is going on with Frodo? And of course, we're going to be returning to the important question: how much is the ring involved in Frodo's mindset, in Frodo's thought, as he moves forward here? I'm going to be very interested to see what we can see about that when we look carefully at the choice passage. And of course, to begin to understand why Elrond doesn't just draft him. He could have done, right? He could have had one of those moments. It's a moment I always find so striking. One of my other favorite books, Watership Down, when Hazel lays out what the plan to get the does out of Ephrafa is going to require, these like massive, almost impossible things. And then he turns to Blackberry and says, and you are going to devise that plan. And I always thought that was one of the gutsiest leadership moments that Hazel shows in the entire book. I'm always really interested by that moment. Elrond could totally have done that, right? He could have been like, we must send the ring to the fire, and then just turn to Frodo and say, and you, Frodo, are going to bear it, right? So why don't they do that? What is going on in the minds of Gandalf and Elrond here? How does that work? So we will look at these things next time. Hopefully, at least many of these things next time. At least Frodo's choice and his thought process for next time. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So thanks everybody for joining us. Thus ends our book discussion. Another week and another slide down. 3 slides left in the Council of Elrond. And I appreciate, as always, your joining me and your wonderful comments and insights as we continue to move forward at our perfectly appropriate and satisfactory pace. I know we joke about how slow we go, and I got you should have heard them laughing at the Prancing Pony moot when I was telling the Prancing Pony guys that we're still on the Council of Elrond. Remember, it was like 2 years ago when Sean and Alan came and visited us and exploring the Lord of the Rings when we were in the Hall of Fire, right? And they're already at the Battle of Helm's Deep right now, and we're still in the Council of Elrond. They were laughing so hard.
Helm's Deep? Wow.
yeah, they're up to Helm's Deep already. But anyway, I just every single week I learned so much about this path. I learned so much about like the complexity of this interaction between Gandalf and Bilbo had always escaped me before. That was really exciting. So, all right. Thanks everybody. Feel free to stay and join us for the field trip.
Wells of Langflood again. I think we've got
Wells of Langflood again. Yes, we I milestoned at Thokvist. That's right. Yes. Mm-hmm. Go back to our Bjorning friend.
Yep. Oh, and that's right. You had asked if there was any meaning behind Thokvist, and I tried to run it through some translations, and nearest as I got, it is sort of pidgin Danish for show and tell.
Okay. That is a fascinating question. Or rather, that leads to a fascinating question of like what this guy's about. I mean, other than killing wargs, which he makes tolerably clear.
And I might be totally wrong, by the way. Feel free to put in any corrections there, because I do not speak Danish.
All right. Yeah, the eagle
Very
just
nice.
hanging out here on the ground is really unexpected.
Yeah, the quick head turns, it always makes me jump when he's looking right at me.
Right, right. Yes.
But still not a furrier because all the furs here are warg furs, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Oh, that's right. I got to group everyone up. I was busy thinking about other
Yeah,
things.
that's true. I wonder if he's going to make a cape, tippet, or muff out of those warg skins. Presumably not.
I don't think they'd smell very nice, but he did make a shoulder guard out of it.
Well, yes, out of the taxidermied skull of a warg, right?
Can't say there's a lot of call for that.
Yeah, yeah.
Still
Okay,
filling everyone up.
so
Let's see.
I wanted to go back to the Floodfells, didn't I?
Um,
I
I
wanted to go
think
back and see like where we were able to turn right when it will now left,
mm-hmm.
going back that we didn't, and see if we can see anything interesting up further into the mountains here.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a turn here, right? Yes, there's a turn here.
Yeah.
But I think was there one across the river too, or was there nowhere we could go up across the river?
Huh. Hmm. Not sure.
Does anyone remember?
And if I didn't add you to the raid yet, I will get you the next moment we stop here.
Oh yeah, sorry. I apologize. I should let you finish rating up. So does anybody recall? Again, I remembered this road that went off to the right hand side as we were coming down that we passed. I don't remember anything else, but yeah, let's. Oh wait, sorry. I'm here riding off after I said I would wait. Yeah, let's make sure to get everybody so folks can see folks on the map.
All right. Okay. I think if I missed you, just DM me and I'll make sure to add you.
Okay. All right. Let's go because I feel like there's got to be something. Just looking at the map, there's got to be something to the east of the path that we took to get down here. So I want to
Over the bridge repair.
right.
It's funny, every time we kept saying the phrase passed on in the
Yes.
text, and every time you said that the ring has passed on, my brain starts going, it has ceased to be, is it expired and gone to meet its maker?
Not yet. That's coming.
Yeah.
That's coming.
No.
Okay. Should we just go overland, or is there? Because I don't remember there being a path until that
No.
one that we passed on the side of the bridge. So let's just go overland and explore because we can definitely get up this way.
Have a jolly explore.
Exactly, and we'll see. What? Oh, that's a bat. I can't see. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Mostly animals, some wandering.
A lot of goats.
Yeah, a lot of goats, which are not attacking me, so I guess that's a good sign, level-wise.
Oh yeah, they're great at for. That's a nice change.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
Whoops.
I just got stunned by a bat, yeah. Pretty much. All right, there's an orc hunter. Oh, sorry. Whoa. Okay. Oh, what is this little valley down here? Leading down to that other dwarf bridge.
Yeah.
Ooh, is that Mirkwood over there? Those trees?
No, we're facing the wrong direction for that.
No, I'm facing back towards the east again.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, maybe.
Over there, like those trees up on that bluff over there.
Oh, let's see. Yeah, that could be Mirkwood.
Okay, so we've got these highlands here. Let me. Yeah, we might as well explore on foot. Oh, okay. There's the white horse. Oh dear. Okay. Oh yeah, I love how much harder it is to tell what it is from this close.
Yeah, it is.
It's really cool. So we do have evidence that the humans of old came here as they made the geological horse sculpture.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I can see. Those are the hind legs. Right. Got it. Got it.
Yeah, and the tail.
And the tail, yes. Right.
The flank, I think.
So they obviously came here, at some points.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see
And gathered chalk and then rubbed it into the grooves. Yeah.
I don't see any. I can't see anything at all. Okay. I don't see any ruins or anything. I see something between the trees over there, but is that... yeah, I think that's Limlock that we're seeing over there. Like we can just... Yeah, there it is. It just resolved much more clearly.
Yeah, I can see the palisade.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I couldn't see it before, but now I'm seeing that clearly.
Yeah, no, there's no buildings of note on those.
Right.
We obscure the view.
Just the white horse, and I don't see anything anything else down over on that side. And where am I on the map?
No,
Yep,
but nothing's grown up either. The chalk is really clear. The grass is apparently
That's
kind
true.
of short.
It does look like it's... Yeah, you're right. It looks almost like it's mown around it, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's well maintained.
Yeah.
Plus, you gotta redeposit that chalk everywhere.
Right. Yeah. JJ says, is it significant that the white horse is on a green field? I'd almost have to think so, wouldn't you?
Makes you wonder if the banner was designed before or after this horse was created.
After, I would think. That it would be...
So the green field might have just been the grass.
Right. That it could be a memory, of this place. Okay.
They took Field of Green literally then?
Right. I guess we can... Right. On a field of green, yes, exactly. Some fields of green are more literal than others.
Yeah, cheval rampant on a field vert.
I guess we can cross over. Can we cross over? Huh. From a distance, I didn't know we could go among these trees.
Oh my. Didn't know there was anything to go among.
Yeah. Okay, that waterfall
looks like misadventure and
yeah.
Right there.
Think we're not getting up there.
There's a goat over there, but he might have already been.
Right.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
did you guys swim across?
Yeah, I think we can cross down here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah, no problem. What could go wrong?
Oh. Yeah, that looked a lot scarier than it was. Yeah. And Anduin has made me more wary of bodies of water.
Just like leaping in and assuming you can swim across rivers.
Oh yeah. Okay. Oh look, the water's still, and there's Mirkwood on the other side. I'm just gonna swim. Oh no.
Exactly. Okay, the white mare. We're here.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is just like the long man in England.
And I was right. They clearly have mown around the edges.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can see this thick grass here in the middle, but it's trimmed very short. Right along the edges of the chalk.
There's some flowers stuck up here in the white, but not much else.
Right.
Oh, look, it's faded a little at the corners here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it'd be a job and a half to get the whole thing done in one go.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that the hill is not. I mean, that the the hill is itself made of chalk. It's not like that, that they have to, it's not like, it's not chalked like the foul lines at a baseball game are chalked. But
basing it off of what I know of the chalk, the hill drawings in England, those are not done on chalk ground. They are done on whatever ground's there, and then they actually fetch chalk from the shoreline to rub it.
Interesting. Though because I was going to say, even in places where there is chalky soil, such as, again, Watership Down itself, where I have visited and found the soil chalky, just as described in the book. But the chalky soil there is still like, it's just like there are white bits of chalk in the dirt. It's still dirt. Like, it's not like you dig down underneath and there's a solid, layer of chalk like this.
Oh, also, you notice there's all the rocks and stuff around here would imply that it's not chalk.
Right, right. It's certainly not chalk all the way down. Okay.
This would have been worn away by the water.
Yeah. Right, and there is Limlock.
Oh, cool!
Right
You can see it in your little compass rose.
Yes. Yeah,
Beautiful.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, you can see it. You can see it on the big map, even like they show it on the big map, that we're kind of blocking it right now. But yeah, I hadn't really noticed that on the mini map, but that's really neat. Yeah, that's like the best picture of it, I guess, except for when you're standing up in Limlock itself. Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. So they did not seem to live any closer to here. So we saw ruins over there across the way. But this over here seems to be, they visit this, they maintain it, even to this day. That seems clear. And yet there's no evidence. I don't see any evidence of any dwellings. Does anybody know? Bricktails, the chalk horse, I believe, is meant to be viewed from Limlock. I think when we were standing up on the promontory up there, like up on the walls, you could see it really clearly.
Yeah, it makes the most sense that the people maintaining it are from.
Right, exactly. And so I would think that they also would be the ones. Oh dear, poor Greenstand was just killed. There we go. All right, he's back. Sorry, I just watched him keel over there. He got better. Oh, good. I'm so glad to hear it. Yeah. Anyway, so it almost gives this area, and this, this sculpture, an almost sacrosanct feel. Like it's like this is sacred ground that we're waltzing all over here.
Yeah, almost like tending it as part of some sort of ritual devotion.
Yes. Devotion, at least, if not a religious devotion, a reverence for, their ancestors and the story of, who they are and where they came from. Yeah, it's very interesting, especially since the people of Limlock were by and large Bjornings. Right? So, I mean, I would think that the White Mare would not really be their heritage as much. Or, I mean, I guess remotely distant.
Particular horse. I mean, remember, Shadowfax is descended from horse lords. Maybe this is like the first horse lord.
Right, maybe.
Right, some sort of impact on their lives.
Yeah, JJ does point out Bjorn did like horses. Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, there's, are the... the pony friends of Bjorn, a kind of memory of the, evidence of the relationship with horses having gone in a different direction, right? In that different branch of the family, in a sense. Yeah. JJ, the reason I think that the grass is mown rather than eaten short is that it's so different right around the chalk, right? You can see the boundaries right around it, whereas the rest of it is still taller. So I agree. If there were this many goats in this field, the whole field would be short relatively soon. But
30.
But still, I think that it does seem to be a deliberate act of preservation of the sculpture there.
Yeah, as any of us with lawns realize that stuff grows back faster than you'd think.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So interesting. Okay. So I don't think there's anything. I think we don't wander everywhere that there is to wander in the Floodfells here, but I don't think we can get any further inland than this, because this is we're up against the edge of the mountains and the edges of Mirkwood where we're not supposed to cross in. So okay, so I think that's that for this time. Next time we'll explore up in the Mist Hollow. Because we'll start again at Thuckfeast, and then we'll take that path, the path not traveled by, next time, the one up on the other side of the river.
Oh, yeah.
We'll go and we'll see what's up here in the Mist Hollow, and then Framsburg.
Yeah.
Finally, Framsburg. Okay, cool, nice. So that was really fun to be able to, and Hologrow, thanks for pointing out. I didn't realize we actually could get here. The difficulty of getting over here, actually, I kind of liked, like how it looks from every angle, right? From whether you're looking at it from Limlock with that huge gully in between, or whether you're looking at it from that cliff over there, over there, where we came in originally. This place where the White Mare is looks almost perfectly inaccessible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Makes you wonder how they get up here.
Yeah, exactly. So it was cool to find the way over and actually see this place. Oh man, the badgers you guys are being attacked by Elendri? Oh man. All kinds of Watership Down references tonight. Anyway, good. All right. Well, I think we'll leave it here. I'm tempted to continue up and go, but I don't want to start the Mist Hollow at this point. I think we're good, having explored the Floodfells. Mist Hollow next week. Awesome. Cool. JJ wants to know if there's a shed with some mowing equipment nearby, or does whoever grooms it have to drag stuff with him every time? No, I think they haul it, right? A scythe.
Maybe like one of those little sheep huts with the wheels on them.
Right. Yeah. That would be convenient to wheel across the river, I'm sure.
Yeah, up the rocks and back.
Absolutely. Okay. All right, cool. So Mist Hollow next week. Awesome. Thank you so much. And Silk Westcott, congratulations for catching up, by the way. Yeah, worth a journey of 187 sessions to catch up to, he says. Very good. Thank you. Been honored by your presence tonight. That has been it's been fun having you. It's always good when people catch up and join us live. I always look forward to that. So thanks everybody. Thanks for joining us again this week. Next week, the marsh. I almost said the marshmallow. Not quite. The Mist Hallows next time. And we will see what new things we can discover. So thanks, everybody. I'll see you next week. Bye now.
Bye.